So in order to populate our list box using a file, we first need to create that file. So we go to our project folder, then we go to the bin folder, and then debug folder. We create a new text file, which we will call games. And then we will type in the names of a few games that could be included in our list box. Okay, so we go ahead and save. Now we go back to our application, and we need to make sure that we create a stream reader, and that is what is used to read a file or read items from a file. The first thing we want to do is to add in a try-catch statement. That is because whenever we are trying to access a file, we might run into errors. So if that file is opened by somebody else, if some other application is trying to use the same file, etc., we can run into issues. So the first thing we want to do, always use a try-catch statement whenever we are dealing with files. Whenever we're trying to read or write to a file, we create a try-catch statement. Now, in a way, or a very efficient way to catch the error, is to use the exception argument for our catch. We'll call it exe, and then we will display that message. What that would do is display the exception that has occurred. Because different errors might occur while trying to access a file, when we let the program tell us what exception happened and then display the message, it is usually very accurate information. It will let the user know exactly what happened and which error occurred. Alright, so now we have our try-catch statement. The next thing we will do is to declare a stream reader. And a stream reader is what we use to read from a file. So we do create a stream reader, and see here how the stream reader is not really listed in our list of items. So we are missing a library that we need to include. That library, which is needed for accessing, reading and writing to a file, is called system.io, input output. So we do include the library, and then we go back and try to declare our stream reader. Let's see if we can recognize it right now, and see here how we can see it in our list of items to be selected. So we will call it input file. Now this input file needs to know which file to input. Since we might have several files in our folder, we need to specify the file to be opened by this stream reader. And this is the statement to do that. We use the file library, and then we use the open method. Let's do an open text method. And then we need to give it the name of the file. And our file was called games.txt. The next thing we will do is to read a line from the file. And that line or set of characters we will save into a string variable. So we will have a string called game_str, and then in that variable we will store the first line of code, or the first line in our text file. The way to do that is to use our stream reader, which is called input file, and we use the method readLine. Since this is a method, we need parentheses. Now let's output this first line and see how it looks like. So as the form is loading, it reads the first line and it displays it in the message box. And great, all of it works and we're good. Now instead of using a message box to display this first line of code, what we will do is to add it to our list box items. So we can use the same code that we have used previously to populate the list box, but now instead of setting a hard-coded string, we can use our game_str variable. Let's comment out our message box. Now what should happen is we will see our first line in the file be included in our list box, and we can see it here. We have only one item and it has been read from the file. Great. Now instead of having only one item, we want several items. Well, one way to do it would be to just repeat those same 2 lines of code to get the next line from the file. So we will get the first line, we will add it to the list box, then we will get the next line and then add it to the list box. Let's try that. And see here, we do have 2 items in our list box. Now, since we have several items, the best way to go about this is to use a loop. What would the loop do? It would just simply go over the file and read every single line and then add it to our list box. So for that, we will use a while loop. And we need to tell the while loop when to stop. So now we know that the loop will iterate a few times. At every time it will read a line and then populate the list box with whatever was in that line. So these 2 lines of code would not be needed anymore. The only thing that we are missing here is having a condition that would let the file or the loop know when to stop. And one way to do that is to use the end of stream. And the end of stream just indicates that this is the end of the file. There is absolutely nothing else to read from that file. And this is how we do it. We use the input file, that end of stream. So while we did not reach, this is our not operator, while we did not reach our end of stream, we're going to keep on doing the same thing. We're going to keep on reading lines from the file one at a time and then adding that line or that piece of text into our list box. Let's try that and see how it works. Alright, so now we have all of our items from the file inside the list box. Now what we can do, or what we have to do, is to close that file. It is always necessary to close the file. Otherwise, you might run into issues later on. So whenever you're accessing a file, you do need to remember to close that file after you're done reading from the file or writing to the file. And the way to do that is very simply use the close method. That is very simple. It would clean up everything for you. So after you're done accessing the file, it would close the file for you and then you're done. Let's try that. Okay, so we have all of our items in the list box and then we closed our stream reader and we're good to go. Now the last thing that I want to show is, what if we had our file in a different path? What if we did not include our file inside the bin.debug or /debug? Okay, so let's try that. We're going to go back to our folder right here. We're going to delete this file. We'll cut it from here, delete it. And then let's just have this file somewhere else. I have another version of this same file right here. Let's change something from this file. That way we can recognize the difference. So instead of FIFA, we'll have FIFA 15 and then UFC 1. Go ahead and save. Now what we need is the path of the file. Now because the file is not stored within the bin/debug, we need to provide the path to this file. Okay, let's try that. We run into errors. We have unrecognized escape sequence. And that is because the compiler does not recognize these characters that we have included right here. So in order to fix that error, the simplest way to do it is to simply add an @ sign. The @ sign tells the compiler this is a path to the file, so it knows that it needs to look in this directory for this file and read it. Now let's save and try again. And surely enough, we were able to read from the file. We have the FIFA 15 instead of FIFA, and then we have the UFC 1 instead of UFC. So it did actually read from the file that we told it to read from. Okay, so instead of reading from a file within the bin/debug, we were able to create a file in a different path. We only had to specify the path of the file and include the @ sign to tell the compiler where to look for the file. All right, so that concludes our Stream Reader video. I hope that has been helpful, and see you next time.